You are listening to the Unleashed and Aligned podcast, where we strip away the noise, unleash our truth, and align with our highest self. I'm your host, Felicia Dom, certified life coach, Reiki practitioner, and chakra guide, here to help women find deep love and interconnection within themselves. This podcast is here to increase awareness, inspire your journey, and educate you as you reclaim your energy and rise fully into who you are. Check the show notes for links to my healing circle, coaching, and more ways to work with me. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Unleash and Align podcast. I have Nicki Brown with me today. I'm super excited to chat with Nikki. She is a women's healing and empowerment coach who focuses on helping high-achieving women with burnout, recovery, and prevention by helping them reclaim their power and authenticity and return to their true nature. Welcome to the podcast, Nikki.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to have you here. So tell me a little bit about yourself and about what you do.
Like you mentioned, I'm a coach that focuses on helping high achieving women really just reconnect with their truth, regulate their nervous system, and just reclaim who they were before the world told them who they had to be. I think that so much of our lives as women, we get told from such a young age, consciously and unconsciously, who we need to be, how we need to show up. We've been conditioned. And I had that experience myself. And what I found is that it led me so far out of alignment with who I was. I had my own little identity crisis, rock bottom moment in my life where I had to wake up and realize that, hang on, I'm not living my life, I'm living for somebody else. And so a lot of the work that I try and do is blending that science and soul and strategy to help women just really heal from those conditioned beliefs, remember who they really are, and that authentic expression of who they are, and come back to themselves in the most profound way, because that is where their power is. It's in being who they really are and not some version of that. So as the alignment, right? That's what we're
Yes,
talking about.
I love that. And it reminds me of a story when I was in the grocery store. And I don't think that this was any fault to the person that said it or the mom or anything, but it just enforced that societal belief. But I was in the grocery store and there's this like little girl in front of me and her mom's checking out the stuff because it was like one of those self-checkouts. And the lady for the self-checkout that works there came over and was like, "Oh, look at you're such a pretty girl. Look at your pretty dress." And then she said, "And you're so quiet. What a good girl." And I was just like looking there and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly how it starts."
Yeah, exactly.
You're quiet
The
and you
good
look
girl
pretty.
conditioning. Yes. Look
Yeah.
good, be quiet, be a good girl. That's what we've been told. And so I think so many of us grow up just shrinking ourselves and shrinking who we are and like trying to put ourselves into these boxes and killing ourselves trying to do, be, and have it all so that we can look the part, so that we can be palatable and please other
Yes.
people in our lives. And that was such a pivotal moment for me when I woke up to that and started to change the way that I was living.
Oh my gosh, let's just dive right in. So, when did you realize you were playing small or holding yourself back?
Yeah. So for me, it was really there was a couple different points in my life. I think like mini awakenings before this point, but the biggest thing for me was when I actually became a mother. So I had a young daughter at the time, and I went back to work, and I was killing myself trying to be perfect, trying to be the best employee because I was an ambitious person. I had this identity outside of motherhood before I became a mom, and I didn't really want to let that go. Like, I didn't want to become solely wrapped up in this identity of motherhood. I wanted to maintain some sense of myself, which I didn't really have at the time. But like for me at that time, it was work. It was like success, ambition, climbing the
Yeah.
ladder. This is who I am. Look at me. I'm validated, right? So at that time, when I went back to work, I really started to struggle with kind of balancing both worlds and trying to be it all and do it all at work and at home, and constantly feeling guilt and a lot of internalized like frustration and anger and shame and resentment because I felt like I couldn't give 100% in either area. And I was I had a lot of recovering perfectionism
Mm.
now, but back then, like a lot of perfectionism that was really coming forward and it was crushing. It was just crushing me. Like I felt like I was breaking inside trying to maintain this picture of like success. And I had this crisis of like literally on the floor outside my daughter's door, just in a heap, crying because I couldn't control myself. I felt unsafe in my body and I didn't know how to handle her because I didn't know how to handle me. And all of these big emotions were coming up that I'd never really expressed before because I was the good girl. I was keeping it
Yeah.
all in. It was like I was keeping a lid on everything until it just came spilling out and I couldn't hold it anymore. And that it was that moment that I was like, oh, something has to change. And I didn't know at the time what was wrong, but I thought, oh, it must be the job. Like this job is too stressful. It's too much. I had always wanted to make an impact and help people in this world. So I thought that I wanted to go back to making a difference and go into nonprofit work, which is
Mm.
something that I had gone to school for. That's really what I wanted to do. I couldn't do that because the money just wasn't good and the corporate career thing was paying really well. Like you build your life around these circumstances. And so I felt like I couldn't safely do that without sacrificing my family's financial situation. But I went and found a career that was a little bit more aligned. I found a job opening and I applied for that, thinking this is it. This is going to be the thing that changes everything. When I feel better about the work I'm doing in this world and I'm less stressed, I'll be able to show up differently now. And I went through the whole process. They were looking for a coach. And at the time, actually, they were looking for a sales manager, but like the whole description was about coaching. At the time,
Okay.
it was something I hadn't done at all. And so I was just like, I'm not qualified for this, but like I have this skill set and experience. It was like education text. It's just something I care about, something I know about, and something I'm good at. I can bring these things together. And so I went through the whole process and I kept surprising myself. Every point that I crossed, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Finally, they offer me the job. And I'm like, yes. I go home and I got cold feet. I was like, what if I leave? And I just so happened to receive from them as a welcome gift, because they thought I was going to join it. So I a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it was like, welcome to the team. And I was like, yes. But then I had the feet. And I was like, what if I mess this up? What if I can't do this? What if I start this job and then like in a few months I fail and then I have no job again? Like I was the breadwinner in the family. Like I was the one. And so I was like, it's all on me. Like I can't do it. I can't make the sacrifice for this stupid, selfish desire that I have. And so that's when I turned down the job, but I started reading that book. And for me, it was like an eye opening moment of realizing, oh my gosh, like I have been limiting myself my whole life because of all the things I believe about myself. And had I read that book before, ironically, I never would have turned that job down.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's exactly what needed to happen because that actually led me down the path to coaching because I started to really do the work on myself. And it was through that process that I began to unleash myself. Oh, this is who I am. Oh, this is who I
Oh, I
am
love
every
that.
step along the way. Yeah.
And you said the book was by Martha Beck? Was that it?
No, Carol Dweck.
Okay. Sorry. This is
Carol Dweck. Yeah. Mindset. And it was
Mindset.
such a life-changing book for me. But it was really just the beginning of it was the first domino in the unraveling. It was fascinating because the mindset stuff led me to start questioning all these beliefs I had about myself and experimenting and trying new things like this curious little scientist. Like everyone's always, oh, you're so clumsy. I'm like, oh, am I clumsy? Maybe I'm not clumsy.
I love
I'm
that.
going to try taking a dance class. You know, what if I just put all of these things that I believe about myself aside and just discover, does this feel true to me? What if I approach this with like completely neutral eyes and just try and see where it leads? And so that's how I started to live my life a little bit more. That led to me trying to develop new habits. And those habits began to stack into like lifestyle changes that started changing the way that I like lived and started changing my identity. But that really only took me so far. And I kept feeling like I was bumping up into a wall. And that's when I realized, oh no, there's another layer here that like that's holding me back. And that's when I really started to unleash myself because it was of so much deep-seated, like, emotional baggage and trauma that I actually need to work through, like, so much unconscious work. It's not just the conscious stuff that I'm aware of. It's like there are unconscious blocks that are keeping me stuck and bumping up against these walls, and that's when I got deeper certification to really start learning how to work with that within myself.
That reminds me of I was listening to Michael Singer and he had mentioned like when you're doing the work, and I felt like this, and I always try to explain this when somebody is going through something and they're like, "Oh, I'm becoming more aware of this and I'm really working on my mindset," and they're like first getting into it. I'm like, "You're gonna like full speed ahead, and then there's gonna be a part of it where you feel like you're going backwards or you get
Right.
in the crap." And I love the way Michael Singer put it because he said, when you become really conscious, you're going to start wondering, why are all these feelings coming up? And why am I having all these emotions? And it's because your awareness is more heightened and you've already dealt with that kind of surface, like you had mentioned, that surface level stuff that you're conscious of. And then there's that deeper stuff that starts coming up, and it can make you feel like you're going backwards. It can make you feel like, wait, I thought I already took care of this stuff. Why am I so upset about everything? But it's, oh, now you're actually dealing with all of that other stuff that's underneath and just becoming more aware. The more awareness you have, the more you're, I guess I would say, sensitive to that stuff because, like, you understand your emotions better, and so you see them quicker.
Well,
Yeah.
my coach used to say, like, when you wake up, you start to see like your blocks, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I'm really crushing this. Like, you're moving through everything. And then all of a sudden, oh, you see your blocks, and like you start to feel like you're going backwards. But really, it's like this spiral, and we're just coming at it from a higher level. We're
Yeah.
seeing things, we're coming around the same patterns, but seeing them in new ways. And maybe seeing different levels of those patterns. Like maybe we'd healed it at one level, but we see it at another level now. We're in a much deeper way that we haven't really experienced or worked through before. And I find that can feel like it lasts forever. That
Yes.
stage, honestly.
Yes.
In some ways it does. We're always spiraling around, but
Uh-huh.
that initial block that you're talking about, that period of time where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm waking up to all these things and it feels like I'm going backwards, like that period can sometimes feel like it lasts forever. The truth is that you somehow emerge on the other side of that so much more solid, I think, than ever before. Cause you're like, oh no, like I've been around these things so many times now, I feel like a different level of confidence. And I think a lot of those things came up for me when I was trying to build my business. That was such a trial by fire scenario.
Oh my gosh. Entrepreneurship could be like a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation because that is definitely
Yeah.
not for the faint of heart.
No, for sure. For sure.
So, what do you feel like you had to let go of in order to become more of who you are today?
I think everything really, like past versions, all the past versions of myself and who I thought I was. And I feel like I'm still doing that today. I like to see it all as really like a constant evolution. Like every day I'm letting go of who I was so that I can step into who I'm becoming more and more at every level. But I think that some of the biggest things I had to let go of were, for me, self-judgment. Like, I felt like there was so much, not even self-judgment, like just judgment in general, judgment towards other people, judgment towards myself, because I felt like there was so much binary thinking and judgment in me that a lot of it had been conditioned in me. That was probably the biggest thing that I needed to let go of because it kept me locked in these patterns of making meaning of situations that I didn't need to make meaning of, and seeing myself in more negative light than I needed to. And that's that self-compassion that kind of sprouted out of that, like removing the judgment, really helped me heal so much within myself and learn how to like meet the parts of myself that I was afraid of or that I didn't like or that I had previously judged or I felt shame about, and give them space to just exist as like the protectors that they are, like not trying to suppress them or make them bad, but just being like, this is a part of me, allow me to bring forward more of myself. So letting go of the judgment and has, I think, been one of the biggest things.
That is a big one. And I think that when you touched on it too, I think that when we can be in a pretty critical, judgmental state within ourselves, we tend to do that more. And so I always think if I'm judging somebody in a situation, I'm like, okay, wait, how am I reflected in this? What is this making?
Right.
I'm making it mean something about me, or I'm judging them because I'm judging myself. It's like
Right.
when people judge somebody's appearance, generally they have a strong judgments about their appearance, right? And so I think that's a good thing to keep in mind is if you find yourself judging, to reel it back in and look within. And I think that also helped me within showing up online with when I first started my business because I was like, I had to take a step back and think, okay, if somebody's being mean to me, there's a lot of internal stuff going on within them.
Right.
And when you can see that in yourself, you can see it in other people, and so you start having compassion for the people. Instead of being like, "Oh, they're so judgmental," or whatever,
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, they're hurting. There's some stuff going on
Right.
inside." And so
Exactly.
your own awareness and your own growth really does help you see other people in a different way, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
The mirror, and it's so revealing all the time, like all the areas that I still need to work on myself. Every
Yeah,
time I'm triggered by something, every time I feel like a judgment come up about something, I'm like, oh, okay, what is this trying to show me? Because it's
yeah,
always got information, and it's been so helpful. Uh,
yeah,
those judgments, I think, is something that so many people have a hard time doing because I think in order to do that, you have to let go of control and also like your belief about things needing to be a certain way. I think is partly like that control mechanism
yeah,
and a lot of protection and perfectionism that comes along with that. So I think those are
yeah.
some of the biggest struggles.
I think I love that you said that because when you're doing self-acceptance work, I think that's the main reason why we get really caught up in, I guess, quote unquote, being bad or not liking those bad parts of us. And I'm putting
Mhm.
like bad in
Yeah,
quotes.
quotes.
Yeah. Because we have those like that control or that this is how it's supposed to be, this is how I'm supposed to be. And I've been doing a lot of like radical acceptance work and it's amazing. It's hard. It's super hard at first, but then when you really start accepting all of the parts of you, even when you are like, "Oh, that was me being crappy." It's really awesome because
Yeah.
like the more I do it, the more I accept. And it's not like you're condoning behaviors
Right.
that you
I
don't
was just
like.
gonna say, I think it's important to note, like, it's not about condoning those behaviors, right? Like, just to add context and nuance there, because we're not saying, oh, it's okay that you act crappy sometimes. It's like accepting that there is a part of you that like all emotion is just energy and motion,
Mhm.
right? It's like, and it comes with information. And that's the thing that like we often miss. Like, what's the information? What is it
Mhm.
trying to tell me? Right. And when we start noticing those things and we start taking in that information, like processing the emotion, let it pass through. When you have these moments of realizing, oh, okay, every single emotion is information. And when I allow that information to express in me, then I don't have to hang on to the story about it or get looped or trapped into that. And I don't have to like make it mean anything is wrong or bad. I can just see it neutrally. Now, from here, what am I going to do about that? That's the next piece. Of what am I going to do about that? If it's neutral, and we don't make meaning about it, then we can take it and do something useful with it as opposed to like trying to hide whatever bad that is.
Yes, and I like that you touched on that because I wanted to mention that it's we can get like some type of education out of it as
Hmm.
to either why did I feel like this? Why did I act like this? And then that's really great information for us to then reframe how we're moving
Right.
through life or how we want to show up next time. Or maybe there's something there that you're like, oh, wow, that actually is a wound I still need to dive into and maybe do some more awareness
Right.
work and work through. And so I
Yeah.
like that you had mentioned that because I think that's a big piece of there's that awareness and then there's that acceptance piece. And then there's that education piece and what is this information telling me? Where do I go with it? And there's a
Yeah,
lot more to it, but I think that it is little baby steps to get there because I don't think we can all just go through, oh, have awareness and now I'm going to accept it. Now I'm going to, that is a big step and it takes a long time to get
it does.
to that.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It does.
So, what advice would you give to somebody that is maybe struggling right now with who they are and their identity and what they even I always like to say, do you even know what you like? Do you know what your values are? Do you know what your beliefs are? Because that's a big thing that I think people don't actually sit down and say, wait, what are they? Because, like you had mentioned, we can be walking around so unconscious that we don't even know the things that we like. And if somebody's thinking, I don't know if I like my job, I don't know if I like where I'm at in my life, what kind of advice would you give for them to start
Yeah.
maybe opening up?
So I think the advice I would give, you can't think your way into alignment, right? I think so often people get stuck in this overthinking trap. And I was personally one of those people. I spent a lot of time like in my mind overthinking everything as a person who had a lot of perfectionism and anxiety and stuff like that. Oftentimes people who have those tendencies tend to be very like mind heavy, overthinking. So much of the work of healing and coming into alignment is really about feeling that somatically through the body. Something I had so much resistance to when I first started to learn that work because it felt so unnatural to me. I spent, because of my own kind of healing work, I spent a lot of time on this because I didn't feel comfortable or safe in my own body due to my upbringing and like my past trauma. And that was something that I had to work really hard on just dropping into creating this grounding and mindful awareness, like connecting with my body daily, because so much wisdom that we don't notice. And the other thing that I wanted to mention on this topic is about when you're overthinking, you actually have to move your body because that is like you have to get into action to really get out of thinking and into doing. And it's not about doing the right thing. There's not necessarily a right thing, but like I think I mentioned in the beginning, just to bring it back, when I started doing the work around my mindset, for example, I just started experimenting. Oh, I wonder if I just put this aside. I'm going to try this thing and see where it leads, like with
Mm,
curiosity, right? So, like doing something as opposed to just like thinking about it and journaling about it, because your mind will also like to play tricks on you before it's fully before you fully like develop that ability to identify like the ego and things like that, right? So it's really important to just do something, to try things and say, does this feel good to me? Does this feel like something that is true? Does this bring me closer to my values? And that's the other thing. Like knowing what your values are can be really helpful, but then some people think they have these values and they don't question those either. And
mhm.
so it's like when I start to bring my values into how I'm living my life, do they still resonate? Is this really a value for me? And if it is, then it should show up in how I'm like living and not just like what I think. So, yeah, I guess the biggest advice I would have is trying to bring that work into the embodiment piece and into doing more than thinking about it, and remembering that like healing isn't about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about coming home to the version of you that's buried underneath all of those survival patterns. And so when we start stripping away all the conditioning and the survival patterns and we come back to who we really are beneath that, I think that's the other advice I have, to not get caught up in trying to do better and be better because they're trying to hit some goal. I think sometimes people get caught up in those things.
Oh, beautifully said. I love everything that you had mentioned and the steps that it takes. I think that's really important too. So, when you're feeling like maybe you're off or feeling disconnected, what do you do now to realign?
So for me now to realign when I'm feeling off or disconnected, I first start with a little check-in because I know for me, like if I'm starting out of alignment or I'm starting to feel like not good, I know it's because I haven't been taking care of myself. So that's the first thing for me. The second I feel that, I know something is not happening that normally should be happening. And I start to just go through my own little process. Like I've developed things like a practice for me that keeps me feeling good and healthy. And I think that looks different to everyone. Sometimes people get caught up in all the gurus out there and thinking like, do that thing. And but if that doesn't feel good to you, that's not something you should do. So for me, I'm not going to wake up at 6 a.m. and go do a hit workout at the gym because that's not what I need to feel good. What I need is like slow and mindful movement that supports me. So yoga, for example, I make sure that every day I do 20 minutes of yoga, and I don't do it first thing in the morning because I'm not a morning person. Like I do it at 9 a.m. after my kids have gone to school because then I feel like
You can
I
breathe.
need right? The first thing I always do is just look for like, where am I not following my practice that supports me,
Mm.
whatever that is, which usually consists of some form of mindful movement, meditation, which it doesn't have to be like a big thing. I think some people stress about meditation. There's so many different kinds of meditation. I wasn't good at meditation when I first started. I started with guided meditations and I went into different forms from there. But like just exploring the things that work for me now that I have my own like routine of and like repertoire of like tools that really support me. I look at those and I go, which ones am I not using? And the other thing is just checking in like, how's my life going, for example? Are there things that are more stressful for me right now that maybe I haven't paused to acknowledge? Have I been like spending the time to process emotions? Usually this is part of my
Mhm.
process. So like I would be doing those are things that I think can be really helpful. Just noticing how things are going, how you're taking time to care for yourself through that process and support yourself in a way that feels nourishing for your body and your mind and like your whole being.
I think that's amazing, and I think you touched on a lot of good things. And one of them, there's a couple things, but one thing that I liked is that you said that process in the morning looks different for everybody. And I
Mhm.
love that because I remember talking to people, and I know that there's a lot of information about getting like early morning sunlight in your eyes and like things like that. And people are like trying to tailor their schedule to have that morning sunrise, and then it like disrupts their life. And why are like you don't I get it. There's benefits and there's studies, and there's a lot of studies about different things that are very beneficial to people. But if it doesn't fit into my routine or my day, and it doesn't feel aligned, I don't care how beneficial that somebody
Right.
say,
Not
'cause
beneficial if it doesn't fit you or
I was just
support
gonna
you.
say it becomes unbeneficial at that point.
Yeah.
And so I like that you touched on that it doesn't matter if you're a morning person. Like, I'm a morning person, and I like to get my gym in early in the morning, and I have a lot of fire in my chart, and so I'm, like, very active. That's what gets me awake and going and feeling good. And then there's different times of the day that I like to do that restful mindfulness meditation journal work. And I've had to go through, like you said, like finding your own thing. I've had to go through and like figure that out for myself because I did try that slow, calm morning stuff and it doesn't work for me. And I
Mhm.
think that's really important to know about yourself. And even like gratitude, and I've mentioned this so many times on my podcast, but the different ways to do gratitudes. Because at first I was, oh, I have to journal and I have to write a whole page of stuff and I have to do it every day and I have to do it this time every day. And then I was like, why am I putting like constrictions on this? Like, I don't need to put this in a box. I can figure out what flows for me. I can figure out different times. Maybe it's not doing a whole page, maybe it's just doing 3 a day. And then it's evolved for me now where I do it on my morning walks with my dog. Sometimes I'll write it down, and that does feel good, so I'm not discounting that. And I
Yeah.
have a gratitude jar that we keep in our kitchen area, and so when I feel led to, I'll just write down some. But it's not like I have to do it. It's something that it's in a flow. I do love every morning doing my gratitudes in the morning with my mostly because it's like early morning sets the tone for my day, but that is something that I have had to figure out. And so, like, finding, like you had mentioned, what supports you, and I absolutely love that, and I was one that didn't like meditation before either, and I just wanna mention, which I think I did before on this podcast, but I'm gonna do it again because I think it's, really important, is when you're doing meditation is to find what fits for you, and
Right.
for me, I didn't realize that just focusing on my breathing was meditation. Because when I first
Yes.
started, I was like, "I have to not think about anything, I have to calm my mind," and it was so hard. I
People
know.
get so caught up in those like these structured ideas of like how we should be. And I think it's another form of conditioning, honestly, that's
Mhm.
like bleeding into the wellness industry and people who are trying to work on themselves. That's how they end up falling back into the same trap of like not actually honoring and trusting themselves and figuring out who they are and what they need. So yeah, I
Yes,
love that you said
yes.
that.
I'm you touched on that so perfectly because that is exactly I have literally done that myself, is I put
Mhm.
these conditions on those wellness things, and then I'm, like,
Yes.
restricting it, and then I'm feeling more tight in my body, and I'm like, "This isn't working."
Right. Because anytime we put the pressure, then it stops flowing and it stops feeling good and it defeats the whole purpose, right? Then you start to feel like, oh, this is a thing that I have to do. And this was something that I learned in the habit stage of like my development where I was trying to develop habits and I kept like being like, why can't I stick to these habits of like trying to do this workout or that workout? Because like I was following things that other people were telling me and I didn't feel good waking up at 5 a.m. Like I'm more of a nighttime person. I like to get my I have my most energy in the afternoons and the evenings. So finding my own rhythm was so important and like reconnecting with my nature and how my body wants to like move and work. Because otherwise you're just like I said, you're trying to fit yourself into these boxes or follow what other people are telling you to do. And it's not like it's wrong or bad advice. There's wisdom in all of it. But it doesn't mean that it's the best for you specifically, and I think that's the thing that people need to, like, really come back to, like, we spend so much time searching outwards, the answers and the guidance from other people, and not enough time learning how to go inwards and tune inwards, which is something that I help a lot of my clients. 'Cause I think there's so many people out there who are gonna tell you what to do. You don't need another coach to come in and do that for you. What you need is to develop the tools and the capacity to look within yourself and tune into yourself and find out like what's good for you, not having someone else.
Yes, I completely agree with that, and you everything that you're saying is, like, gold. I love it. So, my last question is, what does unleashed and aligned mean to you?
Yeah. So for me, unleashed and aligned, I think means really just bringing out all of who you are, the most authentic expression of you. We talked about that. Like when we cut through all of these patterns, when we start excavating all of the conditioned pieces of us and all the beliefs that tell us who we need to be, we really start to become unleashed in like who we are. Like we're not trying to fit into these boxes anymore. We're like breaking out of them. We're breaking through the stuckness, the stagnation, and we're finding an alignment with our true selves. And going back to what we were just talking about with that inner wisdom, like that's how you find that alignment by being able to tune in to your body, to your own wisdom, figure out what is true for you, what feels good for you. Because at the end of the day, if we're not creating a life that feels good to us, then it's probably not in alignment, which is like that's it's a pretty good indication. Obviously, I want to state for the record, like when we're growing, we're going to put ourselves in new situations. Yes, that'll be uncomfortable. But, like, we know in our being when something feels true and right for us and when it doesn't. And I
Mhm.
think you notice that in, like, the way that your body responds. Does it feel like openness and expansiveness and, like, lightness, or does it feel like tightness and contraction and, like, shrinking? Like, how do you feel experientially in your life? And, of course, there's gonna be like, we can't all curate our life perfectly, so there's always going to be things in your life that maybe you're not feeling great, but can you find a way to make it work for you? Or can you find a way to work through that in a way that supports you? Right. For example, for a long time, while I was building my coaching business, I was still working my corporate job and I didn't love that. It felt like out of alignment for me, but I was also building towards something that was in alignment for me. and again, I'm not advocating or something different, but what I'm saying is if you find something that feels hard or feels frustrating, it's like, how can I find a way to create more alignment in pieces of this part of my life or in ways that support this part of my life, that it doesn't feel as hard or out of alignment? How can I find a way to bring more of my values into this work so that even if I'm doing something that doesn't feel aligned, I'm showing up in a way that is aligned, right?
I think that's important too, making that choice. Like, I'm doing this to support what is in alignment. And like you said, how do I bring that alignment into this? How do I bring that authenticity in that? What feels good to me? Like you said, you could be in a corporate job, but maybe you are helping people have better days. Like, you're bringing the sunshine into the workplace. That can
Right.
literally help people. I think people diminish these little I don't wanna say little because they're not little, but we can think of them as, like, small things, like smiling at somebody or asking how their day is and being genuinely curious. Those little things really do help other people, and it can be a form of being in alignment and being supportive and being in that, like, that energy that you want in a situation that maybe is something that you're moving through.
Absolutely.
So it was so amazing to talk to you today. Is there anything else that you feel like you're led to share with us or any last words that you want to say?
Just want to say, I think I would love to share that anyone who is looking for alignment, I think, or looking to feel like better in their life, I think that the one thing that often holds people back is guilt. And we didn't really touch on that, but there's always some feeling of like guilt about like letting other people down. And I think the one thing that I really wanted to share is that doing this work on yourself, I think, is the most selfless thing that you can do. So many people think it's selfish, but I think it's selfless because the more that we do this work, the more we show up as our best and how that impacts the people around us. Like we're saying about going into the office and like being that person that smiles, or all those little ways that like we show up in the world and how it creates ripples and how it makes a difference without us even realizing it. And
Mm,
I just think that the most selfless thing you can do is to prioritize working on yourself and knowing that will have ripple effects, but not just on the people around you, but like for generations to come. And I think so much of my mission, I feel in this world, is realizing, like bringing back to my dad always used to say, what are you going to do? What can one person really do? Because I cared a lot about big issues. You're just one person. There's only so much you can, what can one person really do? But I really feel like one person can make such a massive difference when you ripple that out into the world. And so I, my deepest hope is that anyone who feels the call or the push to really change themselves or to make something better in their life, that they prioritize that self work, because the ripple effect, I think, has the ability to change the entire planet one by one. And that doesn't seem like a big thing. It seems, oh, but that'll take forever. It's so long. But just never underestimate the power of that, because you see it already happening now. Like how the first person who got up and started talking about personal development and
mhm.
changing the way they think and stuff like that, and how they impacted those other people around them, and how that's grown into like now this industry is massive. There's so
Yeah.
many people stepping into this because of the power of one person and how every single person they help, how that impacts them and stretches out. So I just
Yes.
want to share that.
Beautiful. I think that we can get caught up in thinking that oh, what are we gonna do? But you're right. Just like we mentioned before about being kind to somebody and or giving a smile can then ripple to that person, changing their attitudes and then doing it to somebody else and changing and you don't understand the extent of that love that comes out and that love that and when I say love, I mean that energy, that positive energy that comes out and ripples throughout. And it can have the same effect when you have negative energy ripple out. Like you had mentioned earlier, that energy is just, it's always flowing. It doesn't
Yeah.
stop. And so the more that we can send out that positive energy, the more impact that we can make on the world. And I think that's a beautiful thing to end with. So it was incredible having you here, Nikki. I thoroughly enjoyed our
Pleasure.
conversation.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review so that we can connect with more people to develop our mind, body, and spirit.